welcome back to another reading and correcting of Crimson by me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. Today we are doing Chapter 12. Alex stood at the entrance of the lounge, looking at the mass of people. He'd been there a few times with Will, to watch a vid or play a game at one of the tables, but this was his first time coming in alone. Of people, without Will to act as a buffer, made him nervous. Will had introduced him to a few of the men and women he knew, but Alex hadn't caught the names and hadn't really wanted to get to know them. They were pirates, big and scary, a lot of them. Even those who were thin scared him. He had a look in their eyes that screamed of violence. His younger friend was already somewhere among the mass. He'd offered for Alex to come with him, but he'd said no, a mix of not wanting to be with other people and figuring Alex could use some time away from his babysitting duties. Maybe Carlina would be there and he'd get the chance to tell her how he felt. But after an hour of lying on his bunk, looking at Jack's hologram and feeling miserable, he decided he needed to distract himself. Couldn't use the terminal in their room to access the entertainment library among the nightmare that was the ship's computer. Couldn't contact the network. The captain had cut all transmission a few days after they left the station for a reason Will wouldn't tell him, so he couldn't get any entertainment back. So that left the lounge, with its screens, games table, and lots of scary people. For more than a month, Alex finally had enough of an understanding of the layout and no longer needed Will to guide him to the common areas, the dining hall and the lounge. And he was confident that if he was dropped anywhere on the ship, he could manage to find his way back to his room in time. Like the previous time here, the first thing Alex did was look for Anders. That meant scared him more than the others. He didn't want to be surprised by him. He found him at a table, drinking and talking as usual. But this time he wasn't with his normal group. These people seemed to be at ease with him too. Knowing where the man was, Alex picked the vid screen on the opposite side of the room. Half of the 20 chairs were occupied by an even mix of men and women. They were watching a show Alex didn't know, but he quickly figured out it was a violent one. He didn't care for violence, but now that he sat down, he didn't want to stand and risk attracting attention to himself. After a few minutes, he found himself transfixed by the gore on the screen. "It looked pretty good," someone whispered close behind him. The words were loud enough to pull Alex out of the show at the moment where the killer was finishing dismantling the bounty hunter's family. The scene had been very graphic. Reminded Alex of the pictures from Tristan's file, although that act on the screen hadn't had the same effect on him. Even if he watched it happen, it was missing something Alex couldn't explain. But it took away the sense of real from the act. "I said, you look pretty good." The voice was louder, and Alex realized the man wasn't just close by, he was right behind him. Alex turned. The man was muscular, like most of the others on the ship. He wore a gray shirt and pants, and his pockmarked face was covered on top with a mass of messy brown hair and stubble over his jaw. The man smiled at him, showing surprisingly white teeth. Alex still looked to left and right, but they were the only ones there. "Thank you," he replied nervously, then turned back to look at the screen. Alex felt the man lean in. "How about we go back to my bunk and make it rattle?" "No thanks," Alex said, trying hard to keep his voice from shaking, but not succeeding at keeping it entirely steady. "Why not? You're too good for me? Was that it?" Alex turned to face the man in surprise. "Of course not." "Think I'm ugly then?" His eyes narrowed, the voice gaining menacing edge to it. "No," Alex replied, his voice shaking now. "I'm with someone." "You have someone?" The man said, tone dubious. "Here?" Alex shook his head. "He isn't here. I'm traveling to meet him." Alex stood to leave, but the man grabbed his arm. Alex held on to the back of the chair to keep standing as he felt his leg wobble from fear. Look, I don't want any trouble. I'm just looking to get to my destination." "Oh, you don't want trouble, do you?" And sneered. "Maybe you should have kept your mouth shut then." Alex tried to free himself by pulling on his arm. For a fleeting moment, he had a vision of gnawing it off at the elbow to gain freedom. The man watched him, amused. "You think I wouldn't hear what you said about me?" "Look, I don't know what you're talking about." Alex pulled harder and his arm came free. He staggered back, regained his footing, and turned to head to the exit. "Don't you fucking walk away from me," the man bellowed. "Something like he doesn't get to question my place here and my ability and not answer for it." A wall of people with faces set in anger formed before him. Alex tried to push them out of the way, but they didn't move. The man grabbed his shoulder and pulled. Alex flew back and landed ass on the ground. He stood and looked around. A wall of people formed a circle around the two of them. Alex raised his arm. I don't want to fight, he said, voice cracking. I don't know what you heard, but I'm sorry. I didn't mean any of it. The man laughed. Fight? We're not going to fight. He grabbed his crutch and shook it. I'm going to show you I can perform better than anyone you've ever had. Alex couldn't get his mouth to work for a moment. You're going to what? I'm going to fuck you. The man clarified. If you didn't want a piece of this, you shouldn't have been talking about it. I didn't say anything. The man started. Well then, once I'm done with you, you're going to have plenty to say. Took a step forward and Alex darted to the side. The man turned to keep facing him. Nowhere to go, little thing. You're not getting out of this until I've had you. Alex tried to push through the people, but they didn't move. Please, he pleaded. I haven't done anything. Just let me through. Hard faces looked back at him. Someone pushed him back. The man caught him. I knew you'd change your mind. Alex spun, and to both surprise, punched him in the face. Alex looked at his fist in horror while the man touched his cheek, a smile growing on his lip. Oh, well, you have some fire in you. Good. I do like for my bitches to have a bit of a fight in them. He backhanded Alex and sent him to the floor. Alex ran a hand over his mouth and came away bloody. His nose hurt and something ran down from it. The man smiled. Come on, get up. Show me you have more fight in you than this. Alex got to his unsteady feet. Look, I don't want to fight you. I don't even know you. Well then, this is going to be real easy. Drop your pants and turn around. Alex shook his head and forced the fear and anger down. No. He made his voice as firm as he could. I'm Jax. No, Jack, I know. He has a plaything. The man replied, he's who I'm going to. I don't care where you're going to. Jack or not, you're mine. I'm the boss here. I'm going to fuck you, and when I'm done, I'm going to pass you around to everyone I know. Now, drop those pants. Alex shook his head. The man shrugged. Guess I've got to hurt you some more then. Alex raised his arm to protect his face as the man approached, but the fist hit him in the stomach. Alex's feet left the ground, and then he came back down. He lost his balance and backpedaled in the wall of people. This time they moved, and he fell on the ground among them. Felt like he was going to throw up as he watched the man lumber. Alex scrambled back, and the people moved out of his way, chuckling and outright laughing. He could turn around and get up. Alex knew he'd be able to race for the door. He could barely push himself back with his hands and feet. The man's laughter joined the others. Fear got Alex more distance between them. Just a little more, he told himself, and he'd be able to get up and run. His hand came down on something uneven, twisted his wrist, fell back, and the pain was such he couldn't stop his yell. Ear steering, he moved to the side to get up before the man came close. He turned and saw what had caused his injury. A gun. He grabbed it with his good hand and pointed it at the man. The people closest moved away, forming another circle. The man stared. Well, who's the idiot that's leaving weapons lying around? He demanded. A murmur traveled through the crowd, but no one responded. He shook his head in annoyance. Okay, hand it over before you hurt yourself. Alex shook his head. There was no way he was relinquishing the one thing that even out of the field. Don't be stupid. There's no way you even know how to use that thing. I'm gonna have to do this side clean because for some reason it doesn't keep the formatting. That's all. Stay away, Alex said through gritted teeth, shaking the gun in a demonstration of his willingness to use it. I don't want to hurt you. I started. Don't worry, you won't. I, on the other hand, am going to hurt you badly if you don't give me the pistol. He motioned with his hand. Alex placed his finger on the trigger, hoping that would convey seriousness. Oh, you're all brave now that you're armed, aren't you? He looked at the people behind him. You people are going to want to get out of the way. If he fires, it's one of you he's going to hit. Fixed his gaze on Alex and took a step forward. Don't come any closer. Or what? Or what? You'll shoot me? Go ahead. Shoot. I'm standing right here, not moving. Come on. Shoot already. Because if you don't, I'm going to fuck you so bad that Jack fellow isn't going to want anything to do with you anymore. He had to shoot. Alex didn't want to be hurt, even less raped. And he believed the man when he said he'd do both. He couldn't see any mercy in those eyes. He had a thought of Tristan for a moment, but instead of being ice cold, the man's eyes were burning hot. He had to pull the trigger. It was the only way to make sure he'd see Jack again. He had to pull the trigger, he repeated himself. The man laughed. Told you, you're not tough like us. You're graveling weak. You don't have the balls it takes to survive out here. You're going to be my, he jerked forward, bitch. Alex startled. There was a flash of light. Then the man was staring at Alex, stunned. He looked down at the burned hole in his chest, crumbling to the floor. Alex watched the unmoving body for a moment and dropped the gun. What had he done? All right, the voice boomed in the silence. What's going on here? Alex turned and stared at the captain in the doorway, looking in his direction and that of the dead man. And this concludes chapter 12 of Crimson. If you are enjoying this, leave a like. Want to know when the next one is going to be posted? Subscribe and hit the bell. Share it with your friends. I'm sure they'll enjoy it. If you want to read the rest of the book, as well as the series, it is available on all major e-retailers. Link is in the notes. If you want to support me, read other stories I've written, and when I get to it, the rest of the series, ahead of time, you can do that on my Patreon. Link is in the notes too. And if you want to watch me record these things live, as well as write new stories live, it's on Twitch. Imagine that. Link is also in the notes. With that, I shall wish you a good day.